Don't upgrade your Steam Deck's SSD before watching this video. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Deck Ready. This is my weekly Steam Deck news video that doesn't actually happen weekly. I kind of only do it when there's big news in the Steam Deck community, and this week there's some really big news. So if you get a 64 or 256 gigabyte Steam Deck, or even a 512 gigabyte and you want to upgrade it, if you go on eBay or Amazon and pick up a 2230 sized SSD, chances are that's going to be completely fine inside your Steam Deck. I've done multiple tutorials on how to do that here on the channel. All you really have to do is open the thing up, unplug the battery, swap out the SSDs and put it all back together, and then you just make a USB stick that has the Steam Deck's OS on it, install that back onto the new SSD, and you're really good to go. But there's two other ways that people have been installing SSDs that might be causing some problems. The first one is taking a 2280 sized SSD. There's a very specific one you can get. It's a Samsung drive, and basically what you do is you cut it to be the size of a 2230 drive. Now, I have a 2230 1 terabyte drive that is the shorter version of this. I didn't end up having to cut a 2280 drive because they were all sold out. Like, someone discovered this, then they talked about it on the Steam Deck subreddit, then everyone went on eBay and bought all of these longer drives before I could get to one. And the reason that it only works with this specific Samsung drive, which I think is called like the PMM91A or something like that, is because all the important SSD components are squashed on one end of the drive. Like, it's really a 2230 drive that's extended to fit in a normal sized NVMe, like 2280 size slot, which there is utility for. Like, you could put that in your PS5, I'm pretty sure, and it'll work out just fine. Now, for me personally, I can't recommend doing this yourself 100% because I haven't done it yet myself, but there are plenty and plenty and plenty of posts popping up on Reddit all the time on the Steam Deck subreddit. Like, I check it every day, and I would say about twice or maybe even 3 times a week, I see posts from people who said they did a successful surgery on their new 2280 Samsung drive and it fit in their Steam Deck just fine, and they were able to install the OS and everything worked. So I'm gonna give that a 99% approval rating on doability and safety. I'm taking 1% off because it's kind of dangerous, I think, to cut SSD, especially one that's made out of metal, because you could accidentally make it super sharp and cut yourself while you're screwing it in, and no one wants to do that. The third option, however, I 100%, as in 0%, recommend. Like, I do not recommend this one at all as being usable inside your Steam Deck because there are plenty of very knowledgeable sources that say do not use it. The size of the drive is the 2242, and if you compare it like side by side with the 2230, you can see that it's very similar but a little bit longer. And the way I became aware of this controversy surrounding this drive is an article from PC Gamer that says it's pretty easy to increase the size of the NVMe SSD in the Steam Deck, apparently. And the subtitle of the article is "Turns out a simple Steam Deck mod means you can install a larger NVMe SSD." Now, in my mind, when I read the initial headline, I was like, yeah, it is pretty easy to install a bigger SSD inside your Steam Deck, as in bigger memory, but they mean physically larger because they're talking about the 2242 SSD. This was initially found by a guy named Belly Jelly on Twitter. Yes, that is kind of a weird name. I didn't name him. I'm sorry, I just had to say that into the camera. And basically what he figured out is if you move a thermal pad that's to the right of the end where you would screw in the SSD inside the Steam Deck, you can actually fit this 2242 sized SSD. And the only reason I'm assuming you would want to go with one like this is that it might be a little bit cheaper online or easier to get than the 2280 size, because 2230 sized SSDs that are around a terabyte are still extremely expensive. Like, you're going to be paying close to $300, I want to say, if you want a 1 terabyte one, which is crazy. So immediately a bunch of websites picked up on this thread and started writing about it because it is kind of cool on the surface to think that more options are available for upgrading your SSD when they are as expensive as 2230 drive. And immediately I saw a quote retweet from Lawrence Yang, who's a Steam Deck lead over at Valve, and he said, "Please do not do this. Nearby thermal pads should not be moved. In addition, most 2242 M2 drives draw more power and get hotter than what the deck is designed for." He then went on to say that if you do this, it'll dramatically shorten the lifespan of your deck. So of course, all these articles that had come out previously were updated, and their headlines basically were updated to say don't upgrade your Steam Deck's internal SSD. And the way a lot of people took that when they read it at first glance is that Valve is saying don't upgrade the SSD in your Steam Deck because they want you to buy the more expensive option, which is the 512 gigabyte one. And honestly, you just have to read the articles to realize they're not saying don't upgrade the SSD at all. They said well in advance before this thing even came out that it's more than possible to do it. You should just not do it if you're not an advanced user. And even then, they still don't completely recommend it because they don't want to have to replace these things if you break it. I mean, we've seen that post, that infamous post on Reddit where someone replaced their SSD in their Steam Deck and ended up frying an internal part because they left the battery plugged in and something went wrong and it overheated, I guess. I don't know. I didn't design the thing. I just know you're supposed to unplug the battery so there's no power because SSDs are not hot swappable. And on top of all of that, whether you get the 64, 256, or 512 gigabyte versions of the Steam Deck, Valve is pretty much taking a loss on all of them. I'm pretty sure that all these parts within the Steam Deck, if you added up the raw cost of building your own Steam Deck from scratch, it would be well in excess of the most expensive option, which I think is a little bit more than $600. So yeah, just to clear things up, you can buy the 64 gigabyte Steam Deck and upgrade it to a 1 terabyte 2230 drive. You can also upgrade it to a 2280 drive if you cut it to the size of the 2230 drive, and you also, most importantly, have to use the right kind where all of the parts are smashed on one side into about the same size as a 2230 drive. The 2242 drive is the one to stay away from. Valve is not saying don't upgrade wholesale. They're specifically saying don't upgrade with the one that makes you move a thermal pad and also runs hotter than other options like a 2230. I bought my 1 terabyte 2230 on eBay from China. It took forever to get here and it was way more expensive than it should have been. Definitely just check out the links in my description because I have comparable drives that'll get to you a lot quicker than the one I ordered. They might be around the same price because prices on memory fluctuate so much, but yeah, you can get it a little bit quicker than I did if you use those links in the description. And also, it gives me a little bit of a kickback here on the channel, and that's awesome. So now that we got this like not great news, I don't really want to call it bad news, out of the way, let's talk about some really good news. So Q2, as far as the Steam Deck shipping schedule is concerned, is over. So hopefully if your Steam Deck was listed as being shipped in Q2, you got your email to buy it and get it shipped to your house and you're playing it and you're enjoying it and having so much fun playing Left 4 Dead 2 on your handheld PC, just like I did. I don't know, like whatever games you're playing from the Steam sale. And if your order is in Q3, you have a lot of reasons to be excited. The first one, of course, is that we're in Q3, so it's gonna be that much shorter until you actually get your purchase email. And the second reason is that Valve has announced they're more than doubling the amount of Steam Decks they're shipping each week, which they've already done before. And I can tell you that since then, I've seen more and more people popping up in my comments than I did before that production ramp up saying that they've ordered their Steam Deck or they got it and they're enjoying it. So that's awesome. So both my friend Fan the Deck and I have done videos where we estimate how many Steam Decks have been sold. Now, both of those videos are pretty out of date because we made them a few months ago, but I noticed that he was responding on Twitter asking Lawrence Yang, who I mentioned earlier in the video, how many exactly they're shipping per week. Now, he guesstimates that they have been shipping 20,000 units per week, which is crazy on its own, but if you more than double that, now they're shipping about 40,000 units per week, and that is a lot of Steam Decks out there. And to me, that says Valve A, really believes in this thing, like they want to get more of them out there because they're seeing people get them in hand and buy a bunch of games on Steam, and B, this is going to be a viable and supported platform by Valve for the future. Like, that's awesome. I'm super excited about that because I know people get upset when you say that Valve has a habit of releasing hardware and then abandoning it, and if you actually look into their past hardware, they don't exactly do that. Like, even devices that they've discontinued, like the Steam Link or the Steam Controller, those are still technically supported on the software side to this day, which is great, and I'm pretty sure you can get repairs done on both of those devices, which is even better. I think the thing that people are always referencing is the Steam machines. I'm personally not aware if you still get software updates on those. I'm pretty sure you don't though, since the new Steam OS is built on a different flavor of Linux, but the point is they're making more and more of these Steam Decks and shipping them out as fast as they possibly can, which means the user base is growing bigger and bigger. I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes bigger than the Valve Index. It's definitely going to be bigger than the first round of Steam machines. It's definitely going to be, if not already bigger than both the Steam Link and the Steam controller. And the more people that end up purchasing this thing, the more incentive and I guess reasoning Valve has to stick with it. So by increasing to 40K-ish units shipped per week, which again is an estimate, that's just good as a whole for the platform of the Steam Deck. You know, I've seen a lot of people tweeting lately that they think Sony and Microsoft are leaving money on the table by not investing in a handheld. And personally, I was a little bit bummed about that, specifically because I wanted a successor to the PS Vita. But now that I have this Steam Deck that can play all of the biggest PlayStation games like God of War, Days Gone, and Horizon Zero Dawn absolutely fine, and I'm pretty sure it's not gonna have any trouble running Spider-Man and Returnal when those eventually come out, I'm totally fine with this being the hardcore handheld. And then on the other side of the fence, with the more casual side of things, you have the Nintendo Switch. Like all these third-party games that don't run all that well on the Nintendo Switch just so happen to look and run really damn well on the Steam Deck, and I think there's an audience for both devices to really thrive, which is great. Because before, with the PlayStation Vita versus the 3DS, it didn't feel that way. It didn't feel like there was space for both of those machines to live and thrive, and now it feels like the complete opposite with the Steam Deck and the Switch, and I love that. Next up, let's talk about this new device that just showed up in the studio, the One X Player Mini. I'm not gonna put this thing directly head-to-head with the Steam Deck because frankly, they're two different devices for two different types of user, and Valve sells the Steam Deck at a huge loss to get it in that great price point that a lot of these other devices really can't compete with because they have great parts just like the Steam Deck does. As for specs, this thing is pretty kitted out. It's got an AMD Ryzen 7 5800U. It also has 16 gigabytes of RAM, and you can get it with some pretty big storage options. And just from a physical standpoint, like actually holding it in your hand, when you pull this thing out of the box, it feels premium. I love the orange and black color scheme. I don't know if you guys know this, but I love Halloween. It's my favorite day of the year. The Halloween movie franchise is my favorite movie franchise. So if I had to pick my two favorite colors, my favorite color scheme in the entire universe is orange and black. And they did it very tastefully here. Like it's mostly black with just a little bit of orange accents. And from a button standpoint, it's pretty good. It could just be improved a little bit. I didn't really realize this until I used the Wii U, ironically, but on a handheld, I like not offset sticks. I like horizontally parallel sticks because when I've been playing on the Nintendo Switch, I really immediately noticed this. My right thumb is like pushed to the right side a little bit, and it doesn't get the right travel that you get with a full-sized analog stick. I noticed this issue again with the Aya Neo Next, which has really great thumbsticks, but they're offset and they just don't feel comfortable. But this device, comparing it to the Aya Neo Next, this is far and away a better and more premium device to me. It plays games pretty much exactly the same, but actually holding this thing in your hand, it feels like a handheld. It doesn't feel like they shoved a PC into a handheld-ish chassis that feels a little too big and a little too heavy. This thing really looks and feels like it was designed to be a handheld from the very beginning. The only thing I can really criticize them on here, other than the offset thumbsticks not having enough travel, is the fact that it's a little bit thick. But I will say, unlike the Aya Neo Next, you don't feel that thickness, which I'm sorry, I just said that on camera. Another aspect that I think is extremely high quality on this device is the screen. So on their website, they say you can get one that's 1920 by 1200 resolution, but I checked this one that I have and it's 800p, just like the Steam Deck. It just looks a little bit brighter to me than the Steam Deck does. And at first I thought it might be because the screen was a different size, but it's almost exactly the same size as the Steam Deck. And honestly, I think it comes down to the cover they have on it. It's got a nice rounded edge to it. It's a super smooth glass. It doesn't have a ton of glare, but it looks good with the Windows 11 operating system. So yeah, big shout out to One X Player for sending this thing over for me to check out. Let me know what you think of it. Are you going to pick one up? Are you going to wait for the next revision? What do you think of the black and orange color scheme? Or do you want the Gundam edition that they sent my friend Yong? Yeah, let me know again down in the comments below. All right, I'm back in my home studio and I'm jumping in here at the end of the video to talk about this new article I saw on GameSpot after the Nintendo Direct Mini that happened yesterday. when I'm filming this video. And by most accounts, it was a pretty solid direct. They showed off gameplay for Mario vs. Rabbids Kingdom Battles sequel, which is really cool. Loved the first game. They also announced that all 3 Persona games that are coming to Steam and Xbox and PS5 are also coming to the Switch very soon, so that's cool as well. But then there was a GameSpot article that came up where someone said basically the Steam Deck has ruined Nintendo Directs for them. And the writer was catching a lot of heat online, obviously from Nintendo fans, because they're sitting there like, of course we have games like Kingdom Battle, Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, like all these Switch exclusive games, and there were Steam Deck people responding like, yeah, we can emulate all of those. And I don't know, I think that's a little bit of a weird response even as the biggest Steam Deck fan out there, because yeah, you can emulate these games pretty well, but they don't run anywhere near as well as they do on the Switch, and they don't even run that well on the Switch. So emulating even like the new Kirby game, the demo for that, I could only pull around 12 to 15 frames per second out of it at lower than native resolution. So yeah, it is a viable option, but on the console side of the fence, those people don't really want to do any of the tweaking or the fun stuff for us PC players who have Steam Decks. But for me personally, I kind of agree with what this guy was saying. Look, I was like the biggest Nintendo Switch supporter out there at the time when it came out. It literally came out on my birthday in 2017, and I was stoked for it because Sony had abandoned my other favorite handheld, the PlayStation Vita. And when the Switch came out, it started getting great games that I was really excited for, like Skyrim and Doom 2016. And then those games came out and I saw how they were running on the device, and over time losing things like cross save, the games having a Switch tax where they come out like a year later, look and run worse and still cost $60, the terrible online service, the weak emulation from the subscription games you get for free with your sub, all that stuff kind of added up for me, and I was like, man, I don't know how much I really enjoy this thing anymore. And the final nail in the coffin for me, honestly, was the Steam Deck's announcement. It wasn't even getting the Steam Deck because I was buying a lot of these games on Steam anyway when they were on sale, so having a handheld where my save will transfer from my PC to the handheld for these games that run better on the Steam Deck than they do on the Switch in 99% of cases, yeah, I mean, for me, that's what kind of killed Nintendo Directs. I'm just being real here. And I don't mean it in a way where like the Steam Deck is better than the Nintendo Switch, because there's pros and cons to each device, right? Like one is more of a gaming PC that's shrunk down into the form factor of a console, and the other is a Nintendo console. You're gonna get great first-party Nintendo games all throughout the year. They are going to run and look as well as they possibly can on the device, and if it's your only gaming device, like you're a younger person or you don't have a ton of disposable income, those games are there for you in the third-party section. But if you ever want to try them looking and running a little bit better, I would recommend switching over to the Steam Deck. I just wanted to talk about this article really quick because I've seen it tweeted and retweeted into oblivion, and I thought it was pretty interesting because for me, I just feel like I kind of outgrew the Switch and the Steam Deck came at the perfect time. But I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments below.